Jake's quantum transmissions had been broadcasting across the galaxy for months before anyone realized what they were hearing. The signals used mathematical principles that were uniquely human, based on concepts like chaos theory and recursive, algorithms that alien minds found difficult to understand. Most Federation monitoring stations classified the transmissions as natural cosmic phenomena rather than artificial communications. The breakthrough came when Commander Lisa Grant of the Federation patrol vessel Independence picked up one of Jake's signals during a routine sweep of the outer territories. Lisa was one of only 12 humans serving as ship commanders in the Federation fleet, and she immediately recognized that the mathematical patterns in the transmission were too complex to be natural phenomena. Lisa's communications officer, a young Altarian named Zethek, had been monitoring the signals for weeks without understanding their significance. The patterns reminded him of the strange music that humans sometimes played in the ship's recreation areas, with rhythms and harmonies that seemed random but somehow worked together. When Lisa explained that the signals were actually sophisticated data transmissions, Zethak was amazed at the complexity hidden within what seemed like chaos. The Independence changed course immediately to investigate the source of the transmissions. As they approached the asteroid field where the Horizon's Edge had been abandoned, Lisa could hardly believe what her sensors were showing. The readings indicated massive industrial activity in an area that Federation records showed as empty space with no strategic value. When they finally located Jake's facility, Lisa had to run the sensor sweeps 3 times to make sure she was reading the data correctly. The converted mining ship was surrounded by a complex network of extraction platforms, manufacturing stations, and defensive installations. Automated drones moved between the asteroids with precision and efficiency that exceeded anything in the Federation databases. The facility was producing rare materials at rates that seemed impossible for a single-person operation. The quantum signatures indicated advanced manufacturing processes that were more sophisticated than anything the Federation had ever developed. Most surprising of all, the entire operation was being run by technology that combined human innovation with modified alien equipment in ways that no Federation engineer had ever considered. Lisa opened a communication channel and was shocked when Jake's face appeared on her screen. He looked healthy and confident, completely unlike someone who had been abandoned to die in space. Behind him, she could see sophisticated control systems and manufacturing equipment that clearly represented years of careful development and refinement. Jake welcomed Lisa aboard his facility with obvious pride in what he had accomplished. He gave her a complete tour of the operation, explaining how each system worked and how he had developed the technology to make it all possible. Lisa was amazed at the ingenuity and determination that had gone into creating such an advanced facility, from the wreckage of a single mining ship. The mining drones that Jake had reprogrammed were extracting materials with precision that alien technology could not match. They worked together in coordinated teams, sharing information and adapting to changing conditions in ways that seemed almost intelligent. Jake explained that he had taught them to think more like humans, using intuition and creativity to solve problems that pure logic could not handle. The manufacturing systems were even more impressive. Jake had developed techniques for combining different materials and processes to create components that were stronger and more efficient than anything the Federation could produce. His fabrication units could build complex devices from raw asteroid materials in a fraction of the time it would take a standard Federation facility. But the most shocking discovery was Jake's defensive capabilities. The mining equipment could be reconfigured as weapon systems in seconds, turning the facility into a heavily armed fortress that could defend itself against any threat. The mining charges could create protective minefields around the operation. The facility itself could maneuver using controlled explosions, making it a mobile weapons platform disguised as civilian infrastructure. Lisa realized that Jake had accidentally created the most advanced independent military installation in Federation space. His innovations had produced technology that was years ahead of anything the Federation military possessed. In trying to abandon one human to save resources, the aliens had given him the tools and motivation to become the most powerful independent operator in the galaxy. The political implications were staggering. Jake's success challenged fundamental Federation assumptions about human capabilities and the efficiency of alien technology. The emergency protocols that had condemned him to death were based on the belief that humans were weak and expendable. But Jake had proven that human creativity and determination could overcome any technological disadvantage. News of Jake's facility spread quickly through Federation communication networks. Scientists and engineers from dozens of species requested permission to study his innovations. Military commanders wanted to understand how civilian mining equipment had been converted into such effective defensive systems. Politicians debated the implications of having an independent human operation that was more advanced than anything the Federation could produce. The original crew of the Horizon's Edge faced immediate court-martial proceedings for abandoning a crew member, but Jake's testimony surprised everyone. He did not seek punishment for his former crewmates, and he explained that their decision had been based on Federation protocols that systematically undervalued human capabilities. The real problem was not individual prejudice, but institutional bias against human problem-solving methods. Jake's facility had become proof that human ingenuity could accomplish things that alien efficiency could never achieve. His success attracted attention from humans throughout Federation space, who had been marginalized by systems that favored alien capabilities over human creativity. Within weeks, Jake was receiving requests from other humans who wanted to join his operation and learn his innovative techniques. The Federation leadership found themselves facing an unprecedented situation. They had spent centuries building a civilization based on the superiority of alien technology and the expendability of human workers. Now, one abandoned human had created an operation that challenged the fundamental assumptions of their entire system. 2 months after being abandoned, Jake had transformed the dying mining ship into something completely different. The vessel that his former crewmates had written off as scrap metal was now producing more valuable materials than it ever had when operated by a full alien crew. Jake had discovered that human creativity could accomplish things that alien efficiency could never imagine. The breakthrough started with the mining operation itself. The original crew had followed Federation protocols that prioritized safety and consistency over productivity. They extracted materials slowly and carefully, making sure to follow every regulation and safety guideline. Jake threw most of those rules out the window and started thinking like a human engineer instead of an alien bureaucrat. He reprogrammed the mining drones to work in coordinated teams rather than following individual assignments. Human military tactics had taught him that small units could accomplish more when they worked together toward a common goal. The drones started communicating with each other, sharing information about the best mining sites and coordinating their efforts to extract materials more efficiently. Jake also discovered that the mining equipment could be pushed far beyond its designed limits if you were willing to accept some risk. The aliens had built safety margins into everything, but Jake calculated that he could operate the systems at much higher power levels without actually damaging them. The plasma cutters could slice through asteroids twice as fast when he overrode their safety protocols. The real innovation came when Jake started combining human problem-solving methods with alien technology. The ship's computer systems were incredibly advanced, but they were designed to think like aliens. They followed logical processes and avoided anything that seemed unpredictable or chaotic. Jake taught them to think more like humans, using intuition and creativity to solve problems that pure logic could not handle. He modified the main computer's programming to include what he called chaos algorithms that could find patterns in seemingly random data. The aliens had always seen randomness as something to be avoided or controlled, but humans had learned to use unpredictability as a tool. The modified computer started finding rich mineral deposits that the original crew had completely missed because they were hidden in complex asteroid formations. Jake's next major project was improving the ship's manufacturing capabilities. The aliens had brought basic fabrication equipment for making replacement parts, but Jake realized that the same technology could be used to build much more sophisticated devices. He started experimenting with combining different materials and manufacturing techniques to create components that were stronger and more efficient than anything in the Federation databases. The key was understanding that human engineering had always been about making the best use of limited resources. While aliens had access to perfect materials and unlimited energy, humans had learned to create amazing things from whatever they could find. Jake applied those same principles to advanced alien technology, using creativity and determination to overcome technical limitations. He built new mining drones that were faster and smarter than the original designs. He created manufacturing systems that could produce complex components from raw asteroid materials. He even developed new types of tools and equipment that combined the best features of human and alien technology. Everything he built was designed to be flexible and adaptable rather than just efficient. The most impressive achievement was Jake's work on the ship's propulsion system. The quantum drive was beyond repair, but Jake discovered that he could use the mining equipment to create a completely different type of engine. By combining mining charges with magnetic field generators, he built a propulsion system that could move the ship using controlled explosions. It was loud, dangerous, and violated every known safety regulation, but it worked perfectly. The aliens would never have considered using explosives as a primary propulsion method because it seemed too unpredictable and risky. Jake had grown up in a culture where humans had been using controlled explosions to solve problems for thousands of years, from gunpowder to rocket engines. The new propulsion system allowed Jake to move his facility around the asteroid field, positioning it near the richest mining sites and avoiding potential hazards. He could extract materials from one area and then move on to the next, maximizing his productivity while minimizing risk. The ship became a mobile mining platform that could operate anywhere in the asteroid belt. Jake also made major improvements to the communication system he had built from spare parts. By studying the principles behind quantum communication technology, he discovered ways to boost the signal strength and range far beyond what the original designers had thought possible. His makeshift transmitter could now reach Federation outposts that were light years away. But Jake was not interested in calling for rescue anymore. He was having too much fun proving that human ingenuity could outperform alien technology. Every day brought new discoveries and innovations that made his operation more successful. He was extracting rare materials that the Federation desperately needed, and he was doing it faster and more efficiently than their best mining crews. The facility had become completely self-sufficient. Jake could manufacture anything he needed from raw materials found in the asteroids. He had enough food, water, and air to last for years. His equipment was better than anything the Federation had ever built. Most importantly, he had proven to himself that humans were not the weak and expendable species that the aliens believed them to be. Jake stood on the observation deck of his converted ship and looked out at the thriving mining operation he had built from nothing. The aliens had abandoned him, expecting him to die quietly in space, but instead, he had created humanity's first independent space-based industry. They had no idea what they had unleashed when they left a human alone with the tools and motivation to succeed. Jake started by taking a complete inventory of everything that still worked on the ship. The main computer kept telling him that the situation was hopeless, but Jake had learned long ago that computers only saw problems, not solutions. He made lists of every functioning system, every spare part, and every tool that might be useful. The ship was badly damaged, but it was still a sophisticated piece of technology with thousands of components. The first priority was extending his air supply. The life support system was designed for 42 crew members, so it should last longer with just one person using it. Jake shut down ventilation to all unused sections of the ship and concentrated the remaining atmosphere in the areas he needed. He also reduced the temperature to slow down his metabolism and make the oxygen last longer. Next, Jake examined the waste recycling system that the computer had marked as non-essential. The aliens had very efficient digestive systems and produced minimal waste, but humans were different. Jake realized he could modify the recycling system to process organic waste into basic nutrients and oxygen. It would not taste good, but it would keep him alive much longer than the computer predicted. The hull breach was getting worse every hour, but Jake found a way to slow the damage. He used mining charges to deliberately break off the weakened section of the hull before it could tear apart the rest of the ship. It was dangerous and violated every safety protocol he had ever learned, but it worked. The controlled explosion sealed the breach by crushing the metal around it, stopping the air leak. Jake's next problem was power. The quantum drive was destroyed, but the ship still had 3 backup fusion reactors that were designed to run the mining equipment. Jake rerouted power from the destroyed sections to the areas where he was living. He also discovered that the entertainment systems used surprisingly large amounts of power, so he cannibalized them for spare energy cells and circuit boards. The communication array had been completely destroyed in the explosion, but Jake found pieces of it scattered throughout the damaged sections. He spent 2 days crawling through twisted metal and broken cables, collecting every component that might still work. The alien engineers who designed the system had used standardized parts that were supposed to be easy to replace, but they had never intended for someone to rebuild the entire array from scratch. Jake used techniques he had learned during the colonial wars to create a basic transmitter from spare parts. It would not be powerful enough to reach the nearest Federation outpost, but it might be detected by passing ships. He combined components from the mining scanners, the entertainment systems, and even the food preparation units to build something that could broadcast on emergency frequencies. While working on the communication system, Jake made an important discovery about the ship's mining equipment. The aliens had programmed it to follow very specific procedures that were safe and efficient, but also limited. Jake found that he could reprogram the mining drones to work in ways that the original designers had never considered. Human thinking was less organized than alien logic, but it was also more flexible. The mining drones could be modified to perform repair work, gather materials from damaged sections of the ship, and even defend against potential threats. Jake spent days rewriting their programming, using code structures that mimicked human problem-solving methods rather than alien efficiency standards. The drones started working much faster and more creatively once they were freed from their original limitations. Jake's biggest breakthrough came when he realized that the ship's position in the asteroid field was actually an advantage. The aliens had seen the asteroids as obstacles to navigation, but Jake saw them as a source of raw materials. The mining equipment was still functional, and there were millions of tons of metal, ice, and other useful substances floating nearby. He sent the reprogrammed mining drones to collect materials from the surrounding asteroids. They brought back steel for hull repairs, ice for water and oxygen production, and rare elements that could be used to build new components. Jake set up a small manufacturing operation in the ship's cargo bay, using tools and equipment that had been designed for mining, but could be adapted for construction. The work was exhausting and dangerous. Jake had to wear a pressure suit whenever he went outside the ship, and one small mistake could mean instant death in the vacuum of space. But every day brought new improvements to his situation. He patched more holes in the hull, extended his air supply, and built better equipment from salvaged materials. After 3 weeks alone on the ship, Jake had accomplished something that the Federation's best engineers would have said was impossible. He had taken a vessel that was written off as a total loss and turned it into a functioning habitat that could support human life indefinitely. The aliens had left him to die, but he had used their own technology against them to survive. Jake looked out at the asteroid field and smiled. He was no longer just trying to stay alive until rescue arrived. He was building something bigger and better than what the aliens had abandoned. They had given him the tools and materials to create his own future, and he intended to make the most of the opportunity. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel beneath the mining ship's main deck. The horizon's edge had been his home for 3 years now, and he knew every pipe, wire, and bolt that held the massive vessel together. As the chief engineer, he spent most of his time fixing things that broke, which happened a lot when you were mining asteroids in the middle of nowhere. The ship carried a crew of 42 beings from 7 different species. Jake was the only human aboard, but that never bothered him much. He had learned to work with the tall, blue-skinned Altarians who ran the navigation systems, the small but incredibly strong Vorthak, who handled the heavy mining equipment, and even the strange jellyfish-like Medusans who managed the ship's computer networks with their electric tentacles. Most of the crew respected Jake because he could fix problems that stumped even their advanced computer systems. Captain Vextar was a Krillian, one of the reptilian species that dominated the Galactic Trade Federation. He stood nearly 8 feet, tall with scales that changed color based on his mood, and he had been commanding mining vessels for over 60 years. The captain treated Jake fairly, though he sometimes made comments about humans being fragile and short-lived compared to other species. Jake had heard worse things said about humans, so he just focused on doing his job well. The morning started, like any other. Jake was in the engine room running diagnostics on the quantum drive when the mining crew hit something unexpected in asteroid KX-447. The Vorthak miners were using plasma cutters to extract rare crystals when they accidentally cut through a gas pocket. The explosion tore a massive hole in the ship's hull, and emergency alarms started screaming throughout the vessel. Jake felt the ship shudder and lose pressure as he ran toward the damage control station. The main computer was already calculating the extent of the breach, and the numbers looked bad. They had maybe 2 hours before the life support systems failed completely. The breach was too large to seal with emergency patches, and the backup hull plating had been damaged in the explosion. Captain Vextar's voice echoed through the ship's communication system as he ordered all crew to emergency stations. Jake grabbed his tools and headed for the damaged section, but the captain's next announcement stopped him cold. The evacuation protocols had been activated, and crew members were being assigned to escape pods based on Federation emergency procedures. The Federation had very specific rules about who got priority during evacuations. Species were ranked by their survival capabilities, life expectancy, and strategic value to the Federation. Krillians and Altarians were at the top of the list because they lived for centuries and had advanced technology. The strong Vorthak were valued for their physical capabilities. Even the fragile Medusans ranked higher than humans because of their unique ability to interface with computer systems. Humans were at the bottom of the emergency hierarchy. The Federation considered them short-lived, physically weak, and easily replaceable. In a crisis situation where resources were limited, humans were expendable. Jake had known about these protocols, but he never thought they would actually be used against him. The captain's announcement made it clear what was happening. There were only enough escape pods for 38 crew members, and 4 beings would have to stay behind. The computer had already calculated who should be abandoned, and Jake's name was at the top of the list. The captain apologized, but he said that saving Jake would put the entire crew at risk because humans required more resources to keep alive during long-distance space travel. Jake watched through a viewport as his crewmates loaded into the escape pod. Some of them looked sad about leaving him behind, but none of them argued with the captain's decision. The Altarian navigator, Kethyla, even waved goodbye as her pod launched toward the nearest Federation outpost. Within 20 minutes, all the pods were gone, and Jake found himself completely alone on a dying ship. The main computer cheerfully informed him that he had approximately 46 hours of breathable air remaining. The hull breach was getting worse as the ship's structure weakened, and several critical systems were already offline. The fabrication units that could make spare parts were damaged beyond repair. The quantum drive that powered faster-than-light travel was completely destroyed. The communication array had been torn apart in the explosion, so he could not even call for help. Jake stood in the empty bridge and looked out at the stars. The escape pods were already too far away to see, and the nearest inhabited planet was 6 months away at sublight speed. According to every calculation the computer could make, he was going to die alone in space, while his former crewmates reported to Federation authorities that the human crew member had been lost in an unfortunate but unavoidable accident. But Jake Morrison had not become chief engineer by giving up when things looked impossible. He had grown up on Earth during the resource wars, when humans had learned to survive with almost nothing. He had served in the colonial military, where human soldiers regularly defeated better-equipped alien forces through pure stubborn determination. He had spent his entire career solving problems that computers said could not be solved. The Federation had written him off as expendable, but they had made one critical mistake. They had left a human alone with a ship full of tools, spare parts, and mining equipment. They had given him time to think, space to work, and a very strong motivation to prove them wrong. Jake rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The Federation Council chambers had never seen anything like the testimony that Jake Morrison delivered 6 months after his abandonment. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in stunned silence as he calmly explained how their most advanced technology had been improved by simple human creativity and determination. The implications of his success were reshaping the political landscape of the entire galaxy. Jake stood before the assembled delegates, wearing a simple work uniform rather than formal diplomatic attire. He had refused all offers of legal representation, choosing instead to speak for himself about what had happened and what it meant for the future. His facility continued operating in the asteroid field, now staffed by 37 humans who had requested transfer from Federation vessels to join his independent operation. The court-martial of Captain Vextar and the crew of the Horizons Edge had been postponed indefinitely, while Federation lawyers struggled to understand the legal implications of Jake's situation. The emergency protocols that had condemned him to death were technically legal under Federation law, but his subsequent success had made those protocols politically impossible to defend. Jake's testimony focused not on punishment for his former crewmates but on the systematic problems with Federation emergency procedures. He presented detailed analysis, showing how the current protocols wasted valuable resources by prioritizing species survival ratings over actual capabilities. His data proved that humans could survive and thrive in situations that aliens considered hopeless. The economic impact of Jake's operation was already being felt throughout Federation space. His facility was producing rare materials at prices that undercut established mining corporations by 30%, while maintaining higher quality standards. The techniques he had developed were being studied by engineering teams from every major species, but none of them had been able to replicate his success. Jake's innovations had revealed fundamental flaws in Federation technology design. Alien engineers had always prioritized efficiency and safety over adaptability and creativity. Their systems worked perfectly under normal conditions, but failed completely when faced with unexpected challenges. Human engineering principles were less elegant but far more resilient. The political ramifications extended far beyond mining operations. Jake's success had inspired humans throughout Federation space to question their second-class status and demand equal treatment. Human workers were leaving Federation facilities to join independent operations that valued their problem-solving abilities. Entire human colonies were declaring independence and requesting Jake's assistance in developing their own advanced technology. Jake had become the unofficial leader of a human independence movement that he had never intended to create. His asteroid facility served as both a symbol of human capability and a practical training center, where humans could learn to use their creativity to overcome technological disadvantages. The Federation faced the possibility of losing its entire human workforce to independent operations. The alien delegates struggled to understand how their careful calculations had produced such an unexpected result. They had abandoned one human to save resources, but that decision had cost them the monopoly on advanced space technology. Jake's facility had become the foundation for humanity's first independent space-based civilization. Jake's presentation included detailed plans for expanding human operations throughout the galaxy. His techniques could be applied to any situation where creativity and determination were more valuable than standardized procedures. He offered to share his innovations with the Federation in exchange for equal treatment of humans in all emergency protocols and employment practices. The offer created fierce debate among the alien delegates. Some species argued that accepting Jake's terms would undermine the hierarchical structure that had maintained galactic stability for centuries. Others pointed out that rejecting his offer would likely result in humanity establishing a completely independent civilization that could eventually challenge Federation dominance. Jake remained calm throughout the debates, confident that his position was strong regardless of what the Federation decided. His facility was completely self-sufficient and could defend itself against any military action. More importantly, his success had proven that human ingenuity could overcome any challenge, including the opposition of more technologically advanced civilizations. The final vote was closer than anyone expected. The Federation agreed to revise their emergency protocols to treat humans as equals rather than expendable resources. They also established new policies for incorporating human problem-solving methods into standard engineering practices. In exchange, Jake agreed to share his innovations and provide training for Federation engineers. But Jake's real victory was not the political concessions he had won from the Federation. His facility had become humanity's first stepping stone toward independence among the stars. The techniques he had developed could be used to establish human colonies anywhere in the galaxy, free from alien oversight and limitations. The humans, who had joined Jake's operation, were already planning new facilities in other star systems. They had learned that human creativity could transform any situation into an opportunity for advancement. The Federation's attempt to abandon one human had accidentally provided humanity with the tools and motivation to claim their place as equals in galactic civilization. Jake Morrison returned to his asteroid facility as a hero to humans throughout the galaxy and a troubling reminder to aliens that their assumptions about human limitations had been dangerously wrong. He had engineered more than his own survival in the cold emptiness of space. He had engineered humanity's future among the stars, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come from refusing to accept defeat, even when the odds seem impossible.